Hello and welcome to this latest edition of the Virtual Bridge Sessions, and I'm delighted to be joined by Carol Butters today from Edinburgh College, and especially because we'll be talking about, well, ESOL really, which is my parent teaching subject. So I'm intrigued to learn more about virtual placements. Obviously topical now, but topical going forward, I understand, Carol. So tell us more.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for having me. Nice to see everybody. And I'm just going to start by sharing my screen. Okay, does that look okay for everybody? Yeah, great. Okay. So I'd just like to share with you today some of the creative work that our work placement team and our lecturers on our ESOL for employability classes have been doing. As I said, I'm hoping I'm going to have a student from one of these classes joining me in a little bit to keep me on track, but let's just move on just now. So obviously, college, a very different place this year, looks very much like this still. And one of our main challenges was how we could provide a work placement for the students on our employability courses. So in normal years, students will be preparing for, carrying out and reflecting on a placement that they have arranged. And we wanted to adapt the program to provide students with as close to a placement experience as possible and to achieve similar outcomes. So in our normal placement years, when students are going on placement, they would be going into a range of different sectors. They would be exploring areas related to their longer term career goals, and their placements were all tailored to their career paths. And a lot of our students are continuing on, obviously, into further college studies. So the placement is really important to help them really make sure that this is what they want to do. However, this year, the workplace looked like this, and any non-mandatory placements were just not possible. Our students, when they come to us, already have so many employability skills. They're resilient, they are positive, they are outgoing, they're flexible, they're adaptable, they have so many skills already. But our placement program, the key goal is to build confidence in these skills by giving them experience of the Scottish workplace, giving them experience of workplace behaviours, the chance to interact, develop their interpersonal skills, different strategies that they need in the workplace, and to develop an awareness of how valuable their current employability skills are. Our students place a much higher value on their communication skills and sometimes don't realise that all the skills they already have are really valuable. And although we tell them that, they don't believe us. They go on placement and then they believe us. So that's the reason we send them on placement. So that's what we try to do in a normal year, but this year obviously was very different. So we wanted to adapt our program so we could achieve the same aims for our students, and so that they could get experience of a placement in some form. So we built an experience for them around 3 different areas. The first one was simulation, and we'll have a look at this in a second. The second one was a series of guest speakers and Q&As with guest speakers. And the third element was our virtual on-site visit. So I'm just going to show you how these 3 things worked for our students. So if we use Barclays Life Skills a lot, they have developed really excellent employability resources for students. And this year, Barclays were really ahead of the game in developing interactive resources for students. So they've got a great interactive simulation here. I'll show you in just a second. and they have a very good job interview interactive simulation, so students take different options as they go through the video. So we prepared our students for this simulation. They had a number of tasks to do around language that was going to come up, around first impressions, around office roles, around office language. And I'm going to show you a clip, but in my panic of my slides not working before, I forgot to share the sound. So I'm just going to go back, share sound, and off we go again. So this should now work. So you'll see what the students saw as they went through their virtual work experience on this first day. There we are. Okay, here we go.
Nice to meet you. Thanks for coming in. Did you find the building okay? Nice jacket, by the way. Anyway, welcome. Oh, I'm Lucy, by the way. Sorry. Okay. So this is our office. Tell you what, let's dump your stuff off at my desk and then I can show you around. We're hot desks, so it means you basically sit next to whoever you're going to work with that day. And this is the team. This is Louis and Kai.
And this is Jeremy, the self-styled office joker.
So if we ask you if you want a cup of coffee...
Say no.
Okay, let me show you around. Now, you've already been given a bit of a heads up on what we do, but, okay, let me explain a little bit more. In the simplest possible terms, we teach people how to use technology, from businesses, charities, to young people. We run training events to bring them up to speed, getting rid of the jargon, demystifying technology, getting people to understand how to use it to grow their businesses, help out in their day-to-day lives or their futures, how to build apps and websites, etc., etc. Because really, technology is basically only as good as the people who operate it. So, all we're really doing is filling in the digital skills gap. Got it?
Okay, so that just gives a flavour of the simulation. Students found it really engaging. They were able to work at their own pace. There's a lot of tips. You just saw the start of the tips coming up there. And then they get into different options where you can ask for more information about a certain area. So students then completed follow-up tasks in their portfolios. But here's some of the feedback from students of that experience and of that day. So initially a bit of skepticism, but students were then finding some really useful insights through this resource. And you can see at the bottom, they rated it 4.5 stars. They were giving it a 4.5-star rating for that day. So that was pretty good. So a really useful resource there that we will use in the future for either preparing for work experience or maybe for some of our classes that don't go out on work experience at the moment. Okay, so the next element that we organised, or rather the students organised, was guest speakers. So we asked students to tell us who they wanted to hear from, according to what their career aspirations were. And then our placement coordinators helped to set up the speakers and a program of speakers. And this is a sample of a day that our level 5 students had. So it's a mixture of subject specialists from the college, employers who came in and spoke to the students, and students could attend all or some of these presentations, these question and answer sessions. They selected what they wanted to join. They made questions, and then they completed their follow-up in their portfolios. And that's just an example of some of the questions that students prepared. So again, it was a really interactive day, interactive sessions, and students really got a lot from it, particularly with regards to fine-tuning their progression goals for the following year. So lecturer feedback from that event was positive. We'll work on the exhausting side and try and reduce that. And they really said that the speakers were just spot on. They took all the time they could with the students. The employers really wanted to be involved in this, and the students found it incredibly useful. And again, we're going to use this next year, lockdown or no lockdown, to just get our students ready for their progression for the following year. And this was some feedback from the guest, one of the guest speakers, who got back to the lecturer and told them about the students. And again, that's the feedback that we want our students to hear. We want to pass that on to the students so that that just builds their confidence in what they're doing, the questions they're asking, and how they're presenting themselves with employers. That's really important. Okay, so our third component was virtual workplace tours. Novotel have been a really useful and helpful partner for us in the past, with hosting a number of placements for us every year. And they were very happy to organise a virtual day for our students in Novotel. Students were hosted by the sales manager. They met the general manager of the hotel and the housekeeping manager. They had to do research of the company beforehand, and then ask questions when they met the employers on site. And they were given the chance to go around the hotel. So Lena, who was the host for the day, she had them all on her phone. So the class were all on her phone, and she was taking them around, meeting different people. Students were getting the chance to interact with different employees in the hotel, and asking if they could go and see. So they wanted to see the swimming pool. They were taken to see the swimming pool. They wanted to find out about the conference facilities and what kind of events were hosted in this area. So they got a real sense of the range of work that goes on within a building like this, and how they could be involved in that. One very positive experience for students was that Lena was Polish, the general manager is Hungarian, the housekeeping manager, who they also met, is Spanish. So it really gave the students a sense of, yes, I can work towards these managerial positions as well. So just again, a sense of what work in Scotland is really like, and how they can aspire to these different roles. And here's some feedback from that day. The students found that day really positive. They gave it a 5-star rating. They were really, really happy with it. And they completed really interesting work as a reflection of their day in their Eportfolios. Okay, I don't think we've got John with us, so I'm going to show you an example. John's agreed to share his Eportfolio, so just so you can see how the students were actually recording their days, making evaluations, readjusting their goals and their targets that they'd set at the beginning of the week. I'm going to give you a flavour here. Okay, can you see that okay? Yep. Okay, great. So this is how the Eportfolios worked and how it looked for the students. The pack was designed by one of our lecturers, and I'll leave you her contact names at the end of today so that if you want to get in touch, please do. But students could use the pack in different ways. They could type their answers into the boxes. They could dictate their answers using a dictation button, or they could use an online recorder and insert a link. And they could also transcribe an answer. So they had lots of different ways of actually completing their portfolios. So you can see here's day one coming up and the work that they had to do around preparation for that experience and what they learned from it. You can see that for this group, they did a big section on health and safety at work. It's a very engaging way for the learners to be using material. The virtual day, and again, they were rating and giving their feedback through Microsoft Forms. And lots of follow-up in terms of other resources all embedded into the pack here for them. They had a speaker on personal finance. This particular group is a young learner group. They do the money management unit, and they had a speaker about personal finance, which was very useful for them. And you can see that in this, we've got an excellent evaluation here from the student in terms of the use of the pack. So that's really what I wanted to share with you today. And I'm happy to take any questions. Apologies for all that mess at the beginning. And if anybody has any questions, please shout them out. I'll stop my share, but on the slides at the end, if you want to contact me about anything to do with the work placement programme or how not to share a screen when you're doing a presentation, please contact me. Donna Layden is our work placement officer in college-based ESOL, and she can give any information on resources to prepare for work placement and the organisation that we do around work placement. And Beata McKenzie is our ePortfolio expert, and she's very happy to be contacted and will share her templates on Eportfolios if anybody wants to get in touch with Beata. So
I see Walter has asked a question. Do you want to unmute, Walter?
Yeah, Carol, it's just, I'm quite impressed with that AnyFlip example you showed us. So the question was, is that a tool that's used generally across the college, and were you given training in its development?
So, yeah, I'm not sure how widely it's used across the college. To be honest, I know that Beata is really engaged with any new developments, and she's particularly engaged with Eportfolios. She's done a lot of work over the years, and she's always sending us lots of all the newest formats to use. So if you had any questions about the Eportfolios, she'd be delighted to help out with whatever questions you might have. I don't think it's widely used at the moment, to be honest. And certainly within our area, it's used just with the young learner programs. And we've got 2 young learner groups, and they in particular find this really engaging, this way of recording. Yeah.
Could I ask Carol maybe a bit about that experience that you described about bringing the students into the workplace through those kind of guided tours, as it were? So how long would they typically last, and how would students interact during the experience?
So it was planned for a couple of hours, but in reality, it took longer, because once the students were there on Lena's phone in the hotel, and the interaction, they were just interacting on a Zoom call, and they were asking more and more questions as they could see they were having more and more access to people that they really wanted to speak to. So it went on for, I think it was about 3 hours that Lena was with them for, and again, the feedback from Lena was that she really enjoyed the experience as well. So she found it really satisfying to show the students all the different areas of work in the hotel, and it was a positive situation for both the employers and the students. The students had done a lot of work beforehand, so they really knew about Novotel as a company. They really knew about this particular Novotel as well. And I think that was something that the employers were really impressed by, that the questions that they were asking really reflected how much preparation they'd done and how much they'd thought about their day on placement.
And I see, Jason, you have your hand raised.
Indeed, actually, I'd like to know about whether you've dealt with any other employers who are finding their way in this new world. Actually, work placement is very interesting at the moment, because how work actually looks like, and virtual work placement actually might look an awful lot like many people's work at the moment. Is there anything that you've reflected on in that area?
So we've at the start of this year, we made contact with all our employers to see if they would be, again, on a day-to-day basis, you never really know how things are developing, if they would be willing to host students this year. And they all said they wanted to do something, because we've been running placements now for I think about 10 years now. So we've got a lot of partners who are really connected to the college and who really enjoy having our students work with them. So they wanted to do something, but they didn't think it was going to be possible to have our students on site with them. That meant that they were very willing to do other things, like come and be a guest speaker, or do the virtual tour that we set up with Novotel. I know that SQA are developing, or have developed, a suite of units for virtual placements now, it's different to what we've done, obviously, because the actual placement part is a placement. You're doing it virtually. And we're looking at that and seeing whether we might be able to use some of that next year. But that's something we know is being developed, and as I say, we're looking at it to see if we can implement it.
And just as a follow-up, I've got a friend who it was an interesting circumstance of looking for a work placement, and actually probably the best opportunity was going to be in the Netherlands, which wasn't going to suit her until the pandemic struck. And suddenly it all worked out, and such. Are you keeping a focus on local and a view to, well, things perhaps opening up in terms of the pandemic, or are you looking at the possibility of further afield placements?
That's a really interesting question. For this year, we were very much focused on local, because we knew we had that local support, and we knew that our students would be looking for local jobs initially, and they really want to start to build up contacts in these areas. But it's definitely something that we can think about wider wider, further afield. Yes, one of the advantages of this situation is that there's no limits in terms of how far you can reach across the world for different things. Yeah, interesting.
Okay, so any other questions? And Natalia, I think you mentioned you had been an ex-student, perhaps, of Carol's?
Well, kind of, yes. So I work at Edinburgh College in Health and Safety, but I did the complete CELTA last year. But I had a question about, again, the virtual tours and how you engaged with the Novotel and other employers. I wonder if there were employers reluctant or happy in general to get involved in that new way, because that must have meant that they had to do some extra work in a new way of, you know, that was really unknown to them before. So, and what were the obstacles in that process?
So our placement program started in November, and our final group is going out this week. So it's kind of been evolving since November as we've got better at thinking about how to create the experience for students. So the virtual tour is something that's come in at the end of our development of the placements. And because we've had a really close relationship with Novotel, that was the key to getting our students in there as a virtual tour. But that is something that we're going to look at next year, lockdown or no lockdown, for our students, and see if we can get any other partners who might be willing to share that kind of experience with our students. But in general, the employers have been amazing. I think everybody just wants to make a really big effort to support young people as much as they can, and that's been really helpful for us in the work that we've been doing. And thank you, Natalia, for coming in and speaking to our students. Yeah.
I suppose just as a final question to round things up, Carol, what are your plans going forward? Perhaps when we have a less of a lockdown situation, what aspects of what you've done will you take forward into the future academic terms, and what lessons have been learned? What would you change going forward?
So one of the things that we're certainly considering is stretching our work experience reach further into our curriculum delivery. So at the moment, we have got about seven groups, 7 classes of students who are on what we call an employability class. That involves a core placement as part of their studies. But really, all our classes are employability classes, because it's all about communication skills, developing these skills so that they can develop their career. So I think now we've definitely got resources that we will be able to use and pull into a wider range of our curriculum. We will definitely be doing the guest speaker Q&A around about February time for our students at level 5 who are moving into college courses the following year, and who you know, if they can get that chance to really speak to the subject specialists about the detail of the courses, then that really helps them make the correct decision, the correct progression choice for the following year. So I think these are the two main things that have definitely come out as a result of what's happened this year. A bigger reach using some of these virtual resources, guest speakers, and also the fact that before we would never consider having a speaker except in having a speaker in the room with you, whereas now we know we can have a speaker like this, and so that has, you know, that's an eye-opener. That's something that, yeah, well, why did we not think of that before? Of course we'll do that. So we'll definitely be doing that next year.
Okay, so just in terms of time, for those of you watching on YouTube, unfortunately that brings us to the end of our 30-minute session. But of course, if you're available for future sessions and you'll be able to join exciting episodes with us and the team here, please do. But until then, stay safe.